All right, welcome back to the channel, everyone. So today I'm going to be breaking down a few fights, starting off with the return of the Dark Knight, the epitome of health and wellness, Carlos Prates versus Geoff Neal. Now, this fight was originally booked a while ago, back when Prates fought Ian Garry, and I think Geoff Neal pulled out. I don't remember what the injury was, but yeah, Carlos Prates fought Ian Garry. He lost. And as per usual, the MMA fan base was like, oh, Carlos Prates, he was never that good anyways. Oh, how could you lose to Ian Garry? Like, oh my God, because, you know, the fan base doesn't exactly love Ian Garry, so losing to him is a lot worse than, like, your just average, run-of-the-mill, like, top 15 contender. Now, that being said, when Carlos Prates lost that fight, I was going over, like, okay, who should he return to or who should he return against? Because I knew the UFC was high on Prates. Like, every time Dana White talked about him, he was always, like, really complimentary. So I figured they would give him a decent matchup. And I was thinking it's like, they should book Prates versus Colby Covington because not only will Prates walk through him and mop the floor with him, it's a contrast of personalities, so it'd be a really fun matchup. Not only that, Colby's history with Brazil and everything, so it'd be a really fun matchup. Prates would have gotten it done, like, easily, got him back on track, and then, you know, headed back up to the top of the rankings. Now, that being said, this fight, on paper, and, like, as a fun fight, like, the funometer or whatever you want to call it, it's a lot higher, because it's just a pure striking fight, right? Now, as far as just breaking it down, so we'll start with the statistics. So, Carlos Prates is currently 31, and Geoff Neal is 34. So it's a bit of an age gap. However, it's like 34 is not bad for welterweight. Like welterweight, once you start getting like 36, 37, your speed starts dropping. So I'd say Geoff Neal is probably still relatively in his prime. Obviously, it's subjective to like the person and, you know, it's not always consistent throughout like each athlete's like, oh yeah, as soon as you hit 35, this will happen. You know what I mean? So it is what it is, but I still think Geoff Neal is with it. Now, as far as their records go, Geoff Neal is 16 wins, 6 losses. Carlos Prates is 21 wins, 7 losses. And Geoff Neal fights out of the US. Carlos Prates fights out of Brazil. As far as heights go, Geoff Neal is 5'11", and Prates is listed at 6'1". Now, as I always say about the heights, you know what I'm saying? Like, give or take a few inches, right? Because we already seen them face off, so we know Prates is clearly bigger than him. But I'd say Prates is probably more of a 6'2", and I'd say Geoff Neal is maybe closer to 5'10" than 5'11", you know what I'm saying? Be honest here. So Prates definitely has that in his favor. And I'll get back to that later on. But yeah, I think the frame and the heights will be a huge factor in this fight. Now, as far as reach is concerned, Geoff Neal 75 inches, Carlos Prates 78 inches. And as far as the odds, for some reason they're not listed on the UFC website, but it is what it is. So, as far as their win, you know, method, right? So Geoff Neal has a 63% TKO/KO rate, and Prates has a 76% TKO/KO rate. Now, as far as submissions go, Geoff Neal 13%, Carlos Prates 14%. So it's not like they don't know what they're doing on the ground. It's just it's not a main tool of either fighter. So I don't think grappling is going to be a huge factor in this fight. Maybe a bit of the clinch against the wall and all that. But aside from that, I feel like it's going to be mostly on the feet. And then as far as decision rate goes, so Geoff Neal is 25% and Carlos Prates is 10%. So neither one of these guys really love going to decision, which makes for a really good fight. So as far as just raw technique and power and everything, so we'll start off with power, right? As far as power is concerned, I feel like they're both kind of similar. Like, they both have knockouts, obviously. They both have a lot of power in their hands, but I feel like they deliver it a bit differently. Whereas Geoff Neal, he's more like a boxer where it's a lot more hook-based. Whereas Carlos Prates, he loves using his range where it's more like a 1-2, like out of nowhere. Like, he's not much of a boxer. He's more like a Muay Thai kind of kickboxing style. Where as far as speed goes, I'd have to give it to Prates because, like, I was doing tape study today, and, like, I remember one of these fights, I don't remember who it was against, but like he looks down and like he's not even looking. He's like, boom, like right done. You know what I mean? So yeah, he was able to like drop the guy and then finish him. So yeah, like I said, power, I'd say it's fairly similar. Like neither one of them have like Ngannou or like Topuria power where it's just like shut off like cold. It's more of like you get hit with a clean shot from either one of these guys. You're either like rocked or you're like dropped, but you're not like out cold, right? So That being said, like I said, power, fairly similar. Speed, I'd have to give it to Prates. Now, as far as striking in general, right? I'd have to give the advantage to Prates because he's so much more dynamic. Whereas Geoff Neal, yes, he does throw kicks, and you know what I mean? Like, he does engage in clinches and all that, but he's primarily a boxer, right? Whereas Carlos Prates, he loves his knees, he loves his elbows, he loves fighting out at range. He uses his range really, really well. So as far as striking dynamics go, I'd have to give it to Prates. And like I said, grappling's probably not going to be a huge issue in this fight. But if I had to give it, I'd probably give it a slight edge to Geoff Neal, simply because he often engages in like the clinch, especially against the cage. So I feel like Prates definitely has to watch out for that, simply because it's kind of like a time-wasting thing, because it's not like Geoff Neal does like devastating damage while he's holding him against the fence. Like Geoff Neal, he's most dangerous in the boxing range. Whereas Prates, I feel like Prates, as long as he keeps him off his back, like as long as he's not held up against the cage, he's a lot more dangerous in the clinch. Like I said, he's got elbows and he's got knees. These knees will be key in this fight, because I was watching, obviously tape study and all that, like I said, and the thing I noticed is that Geoff Neal, when he fought Ian Garry and when he fought Shavkat, he was getting hit with those knees all the time. All the time. And that's the thing. You see how Prates finished, like, I think it was his name's Radke. Like, I don't remember his first name, but Radke. Where he's just like, he throws or he's holding him, he's like, ooh. And then he just, like, the edit on UFC. And then, boom, like, knee to the guts. And then he started lighting up Bilal. And that was hilarious. But, yeah, I feel like as far as this fight goes, if I was to break down how Prates wins, I would say this, right? Carlos Prates has to keep Geoff Neal from walking forward. Carlos Prates is a lot more effective when he's on the front foot, moving forward. Whereas he loves, not only does he love his knees and all that, he loves, like, he does calf kicks really well, but also teeps to the body. And if you notice, when Geoff Neal starts getting hit to the body, he starts slowing down. And obviously, I mean, it's not just Geoff Neal, it's everybody, right? So I feel like Carlos Prates definitely should target the body a lot more. Anytime Geoff Neal starts to get momentum, boom, right? Teep to the guts, teep to the guts. And like I said, Carlos Prates uses his range excellently. Where you've seen Ian Garry and Shavkat fight Geoff Neal, right? Ian Garry was a lot more on the outside. He has a lot more of a risk-adverse style compared to Shavkat, where Shavkat's like, as Rogan would say, he's a marauder! Shavkat was just going in there. And that's the thing too, Shavkat was like standing still and then like bing bing, like got hit with Geoff Neal and got dropped. I feel like Carlos Prates is the perfect mix between Ian Garry and Shavkat striking, where he's a lot more aggressive than Ian Garry, but he's not as reckless as Shavkat, right? So I feel like Prates will definitely be on the front foot for the most of the time. And not only, like, if he can keep the clinch off of him, I feel like he's in good standings on the outside. As soon as Geoff Neal starts going into the boxing range, I feel like initiate the clinch, knees, knees, knees. Because like I said, Geoff Neal gets clipped by these knees 24/7. And I feel like Prates, he doesn't have to engage earlier on. I feel like kind of frustrate Geoff Neal, because Geoff Neal, another thing, he oftentimes, like, especially versus Ian Garry, he would often reset. Like, it's just like, you know what I mean? And then go back to it. Like, step back, like, just figure it out and then go back. Whereas Prates, I feel like he'll capitalize on that a lot more than Ian Garry. Whereas Ian Garry would kind of let him reset, whereas Prates, as soon as he resets, keep pushing forward. Do not let Geoff Neal have a second of confidence in this fight. Because that's the thing. Geoff Neal, like I said, he's very much with it, and he's very dangerous. And if he played his cards right a bit better against Shavkat when he rocked him, he could have gotten him out of there, right? And Shavkat's no joke. So, as far as Carlos Prates goes, keys to victory, keep him away from you with the teeps and the jabs and all that. Frustrate him early on in round one. Then when he starts to get closing the distance, grab him, go for the clinch, go for the body, like the knees of the body, elbows up top, and do not stay in boxing range. I don't care how confident you are. It's more of like a teep to the body, then Geoff Neal kind of goes, and then Carlos Prates lunges in, boom, boom, get out. Boom, boom, get out. Do not stay in the range. Do not stay in the pocket with Geoff Neal. And then, yeah, I feel like Carlos Prates probably should get this one done in rounds 2, maybe 3. I feel like rounds 1, he definitely needs to download a lot of the data from Geoff Neal, because from what I've been hearing in a lot of these interviews, Geoff Neal's like, oh, this will be done in round 1. So depends on how aggressive he comes out. Now, as far as Geoff Neal is concerned, I feel like the way for him to win, like I said, boxing heavy style. So I feel like Carlos Prates, like I said, he's light on his feet. He has really good footwork. So if I'm Geoff Neal, I'm trying to crack him with as many calf kicks as possible and just work on cutting him off against the cage. Like I said, for Prates, you want to keep pushing forward. Whereas if I'm Geoff Neal, honestly, I've seen a lot of times where Geoff Neal will get like kicked to the arms or whatever. Well, he'll kind of like stop and block and then go back in. Whereas I feel like in this fight for Geoff Neal, as soon as Carlos Prates goes for a kick or something, you're going to have to take a few to get it to Carlos Prates' range. So while he's getting kicked, instead of just like blocking it, I'd say maybe, as long as it's not like a head kick or anything, lunge forward and then go for like a counter, right? Because I feel like Carlos Prates, he's not one of these, like, he's not a guy like Shavkat where he's just going to be there to hit. So I feel like you're going to have to tangle him up. And not only that, like I said, with the clinch, obviously engage in the clinch, frustrate Prates, get him, slow him down, because Prates has a point to prove in this fight, and he's going to want to get it done. So if you can kind of mess with his rhythm, that would be amazing for Geoff Neal. Like I said, calf kicks, and then get him into that boxing range. Get him against the cage. Don't let him move around. Corner him off. Boom, 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 right? Combinations. Just these 1-2s or 1-2-3s are not going to cut it. You have to go up against Carlos Prates, because that's the thing too. Geoff Neal, if we go to, let's say, their history, right? So Geoff Neal, he recently won against Rafael dos Anjos, but, you know, dos Anjos is old, right? And he's a smaller welterweight. Before that, then he lost against Ian Garry in a split decision. I thought it was a unanimous, but yeah, split decision. And that's the thing, before that, he lost to Shavkat Rakhmonov, and then he beat Luque and then Ponzinibbio, and he did bad things to Luque. But then he lost to Neil Magny. Now, the thing in common in Geoff Neal's last losses, like recent losses, is he doesn't do well against these taller fighters. So that's more of a reason why I feel like Prates is the perfect like storm to deal with Geoff Neal, because like I said, he's a lot more dangerous than Ian Garry, but he's not as reckless as Shavkat. So I feel like he's going to get just cut up Geoff Neal, or I really do. Now, as far as Prates, right, we went up and talked about his recent fight against Ian Garry, but then before that, TKO against Neil Magny. And that's the thing, Neil Magny is kind of like, you know what I mean? Like, that's not a great win, because generally if you're top 5, top 10 material, you mop the floor with Neil Magny. So it's not like a huge, like, oh yeah, now I know I'm legit. It just means like you're good enough to be ranked at the top 15. So it's a decent win, but at the end of the day, like, most of the elite welterweights have beaten Geoff Neal, or Neil Magny, sorry. Then before that, he beat Li Jingliang in a TKO. It was a bad one. And then before that, Radke in a KO/TKO in rounds 1. And then, yeah, the Li Jingliang was in rounds 2. So Carlos Prates, until he met up with Ian Garry, he was finishing guys left and right. Now, we've seen with Paulo Costa where you see these devastating strikers and then they lose one and they kind of like their mentality's all over the place. I don't think that's going to be the case for Carlos Prates. I feel like the story of this fight is going to be like, y'all must have forgot. I feel like Carlos Prates, he has a fire lit under him. He was pissed off by the Ian Garry performance. And that's the thing. It's not like he got TKO'd or knocked out or like battered pillar to post, right? So he's still with it. He doesn't have a lot of damage on him. So I feel like that's not going to be, I don't think he's going to be gun shy at all. I just think as long as Carlos Prates sticks to his game plan, doesn't get reckless, doesn't get in the pocket with Geoff Neal, and keeps Geoff Neal off of him when it comes to the clinch, I feel like this should be relative smooth sailing, because like I said, the frame, he has that advantage and he actually uses his frame properly. Whereas like Shavkat, like I said, he's right there. Like he lands a few shots against Geoff Neal and he's just right there in front of him. Dum, dum, right? Prates is not going to be doing that. And yeah, as far as exact finish, I'm going to say, I feel like it's going to be tangled up in the clinch. Prates is going to land a bad knee against Geoff Neal. And then Geoff Neal's going to be like, and then Prates will be like, boom, boom, drop him, and then boom, boom, finish him on the ground for a TKO. I'm going to say that's between rounds 2 and 3. I feel like rounds 1, like I said, he's going to be downloading data. Rounds 2, end of round 2, early round 3, I think it's going to be a TKO by Carlos Prates. And am I 100% confident on that? Prates definitely can lose, but I'd say I'm a lot more confident in this fight than I am for a lot of the other ones. Now, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Now, moving on. Jared Cannonier versus Michael Venom Page. Now, Jared Cannonier is currently 41 and MVP is 38. Now, these guys are both very old, especially for these divisions. Like, you can kind of get away with it at like light heavyweight, maybe heavyweight. Like you've seen, I think wasn't it Daniel Cormier who fought at like 41 or something like that? But it's the outliers who can really manage that and actually have success, right? Jared Cannonier, so like I said, 41, quite old, and he has been slowing down, if we're being honest, right? Now, as far as records go, Jared Cannonier, 18-8, so 18 wins, 8 losses, and MVP, 23 wins, 3 losses. Now, Jared Cannonier is fighting out of the United States. MVP is fighting out of England. Now, Jared Cannonier is 5'11", and MVP is 6'3". As far as reach is concerned, Jared Cannonier has a 77.5-inch reach, and MVP has a 79-inch reach. And as far as the odds, for some reason the UFC website does not have them, so it is what it is. Now, as far as win method, Jared Cannonier 61% TKO, and MVP has a 57%. As far as submissions, Jared Cannonier 11% and MVP 13%. So as per usual, well, not as per usual, but as the case with the other one, I don't think grappling is going to be a big issue in this fight at all. If it is, it'll be by Cannonier. Now, as far as decisions go, Jared Cannonier 28% and MVP 30%. So that's the thing. Like, Jared Cannonier is a devastating striker, but as of recently, he has been getting badly hurt. He's been getting, like, I don't want to say slapped around, but like a lot of these young prospects have been doing a number on him. So he is damaged goods, and he's quite old. Plus reach and height advantage for MVP. I just think this is a disastrous matchup. I question why this is even happening, because it's just like, I don't really understand what MVP's intentions are with the UFC. Like, I do appreciate the bouncing back and forth and the relative activity. However, it's like, I'd like for him to stick at one division and kind of make a run. And I think he was saying how he's good to stay in this division for now because something to do with like the politics and the welterweight and all that. So I guess he'll be here for a while, depending on his success. But as far as advantages and disadvantages go, as far as power, I'd have to give it to Jared Cannonier. He's coming from heavyweight, you know what I mean? And we know him. He has so much power in his hands. Like, even when he was losing in the RoboCop fight, he was able to bounce back, and he still has power basically throughout the entire fight. So that's obviously, without a doubt, Jared Cannonier power, 100%. As far as speed goes, night and day. MVP, for whatever reason, he's 38, but he's still moving faster than a lot of these young guys. Like, he was way faster than Ian Garry. And, that's quite impressive for that age. Now, as far as striking dynamics go, I would have to say, obviously, MVP. He's so methodical the way he throws a lot of his shots, but it's also very unorthodox, and he has like this hands down style, which I don't really love. I don't like when fighters have their hands down because it's just a recipe for disaster, right? But for MVP, for the most time, as you can tell by his record, he makes it work. Now, the thing is, as far as, like I said, wrestling and grappling goes, I'd give it to Cannonier. Not only does he have the lower center of gravity, I think he engages in a lot more grappling than MVP. And I just feel like, I just don't know how well he can be able to implement it. Because in this fight, the way I see it, I just feel like MVP is a nightmare for Jared Cannonier. Because obviously, like I said, Jared Cannonier has not been doing great as of lately. But that being said, if you remember, you look back to when he fought Adesanya, because I feel like obviously MVP and Adesanya have very different fight styles, but they're long strikers who make the most out of their range. So that's the thing. That Adesanya fight happened in 2022, so it is what it is. Like, how much can you really take from it? But the reason I say that, though, is because Jared Cannonier, like with Adesanya, he just kind of froze. He was kind of like a deer in the headlights, where he did throw back and all that, but Adesanya kind of like just the speed and the frame and just in and out. Jared Cannonier really had no answer for him. And I remember that fight, people, like the fans were so pissed off. Like, weren't they like leaving the arena before the fight was even over? Like, yeah, that was during Adesanya's reign where people were resenting him for doing so well and not really committing to a lot of these like dangerous like techniques. But you're a champion, you're living well. Why do you need to risk it, right? So it is what it is. But yeah, same thing. I feel like Jared Cannonier, he's kind of MVP's just gonna. I hate to be so dismissive, but I don't see how Jared Cannonier wins. For MVP, obviously he's going to be in and out. He's going to be hitting Jared Cannonier and out of there before Jared Cannonier can even realize what's happening. I feel like the way for Jared Cannonier, honestly, for him to win, he's going to need to grapple. I don't see him landing a single punch on MVP, at least for the first like round or two, right? I feel like MVP, he's so... I don't know if it's risk adverse, but like he does put himself in danger, but I remember when MVP first got to the UFC and like he was fighting Kevin Holland. And I was like, holy shit, like, whoa, he's in and out of there. And then, he fights again and then he fights again. And every time he fights, he's like, oh no, I could do better, like blah, 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 blah. And I would like for him to have a little more activity, because if I could put, 2 and 2 together, I feel like this is a really good matchup for MVP. The UFC wants to just get rid of Cannonier because, you know what I mean? Like, he's 41. He doesn't really do well on the mic and all that. Like, he's a decent fighter, but you know what I'm saying? Whereas this is a tailor-made matchup for MVP. And I would just like MVP to have a lot more activity. You know what I mean? Because I feel like he can really get this one done. He could definitely TKO Jared, because like I said, he's damaged goods. But honestly, I feel like it's going to be another 3-round kind of decision where MVP's just like floating around, boom, floating around for most of it, boom. But yeah, like I said, back to what I was saying about Jared Cannonier. The way for Jared Cannonier to win this fight, he's going to have to get the crowd booing, man. He's going to have a very... Like, look at how Ian Garry fought MVP. For the most part, he was just trying to grapple him. Jared Cannonier needs to just turn into a wrestler this fight, hold him against the cage, just keep active on the cage, go for those little shots to the head, go for those little body shots, go for some knees. And that's the thing. While you're on the outside, try when MVP goes in, try to get him in the clinch or try to maybe like peel out and get him with a calf kick just to slow him down, because that's the thing. Whenever you have like these fast-paced, fast-twitch fighters, calf kicks are the antidote to that, because you want them slowed down so you can start teeing off on them. Whereas if Jared Cannonier can start to weigh on MVP, hold him against the fence, frustrate him, go for these knees to the body while he was on the clinch, and then, like I said, just kind of make it boring. Don't really engage in the striking. Just, be there for the counter. But always be, like, marching forward. Because that's the thing. Jared Cannonier, like I said, I don't think he's going to have a lot of success on the striking. I just feel like as long as you can maintain constant pressure, it slowly fatigues the opponent. And just like I said, go there for the calf kick if it's open and just try to really slow and bore this fight down. Because that's the only way I see this fight happening for Jared Cannonier to win. As far as MVP... Like I said, in and out of there, I feel like I'll be honest, if MVP doesn't get a TKO, I'll be very disappointed, because it's just like, as much as he is, like, his fight style is very spectacular, it's just, how effective is it really when you're not finishing any of these guys? When you have such a speed advantage, such a technique advantage, and I don't know, man. If it's just another one of these decisions, I'll just, you know what I mean? Like, it'll just be disappointing. As far as MVP, so he recently beat Shara Bullet in a close fight, but MVP definitely got it done. And then before that, he lost to Ian Garry, and then before that, he beat Kevin Holland in his first fight in the UFC. So MVP, he has done relatively well, and that's the thing. A lot of people were shitting on Ian Garry for how he fought that fight. So it is what it is. I feel like if it stood up the whole time, MVP probably would have beaten Ian Garry. But that's the thing. It's MMA. It's not just kickboxing. And then, like I said, Jared Cannonier has been damaged goods. He was getting battered I won't say battered, but really rocked and really hurt multiple times against Rodriguez before he got the TKO finish. Then before that, he was getting... That's the thing. I went back and watched the Baralho fight to prepare for the Imavov. Cannonier did a lot better than a lot of people remember. We'll leave it at that, but yeah. That being said, though, he took a lot of damage against Baralho, and yeah. Then before that, Imavov, same thing. He took a lot of damage. And then before that, he fought Vettori, where he demolished Vettori badly. It was hard to watch. But even before that, though, Vettori, I remember, he hit him with a 1-2 or something like that, and then he rocked Cannonier. So that's the thing. Cannonier's chin is questionable. It is questionable, right? So, like I said, I think this is a tailor-made matchup for MVP. He's going to school him for 3 rounds. I'd love to see a finish, but if I'm being honest, I just see this kind of like a 3-round decision, clear as day. There is a chance for Cannonier to land that lucky shot or whatever, but let's be real, it's probably not. And yeah, to me, this is the easiest pick on the entire main card. MVP by decision. It's a no-brainer. And yeah, that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like and subscribe, and peace.